Hello, Global Gladiators. We're back with Street Masters Rise of the Kingdom. I put out the call, and by popular demand, we're going to be looking at some Twin Tigers stages. The one we're going to be looking at is Poison the Well, and we're going to look at it with the Onyx League, the minions that come with the Twin Tigers expansion. This particular stage is going to revisit the Vandal Serum that we saw back in the core set in the original copy stage. And it's going to take place in what looks like a sewer, and it's pretty straightforward. You're going to be flipping on and flipping off the objective tokens, and basically you're going to do everything you can to defeat the boss before the boss is able to turn them all on and defeat you. Looking at our map, we're going to go ahead and put our loot tokens. That's the first thing you should always do, just because it's the easiest and the rules never change. The next thing we'll do is fish out our stage setup card. It tells us we need the Vandal Poison Vats, and all of the objective tokens are going to be on the board at the beginning in their inactive state. Then we'll go ahead and take a look at the reverse side of the stage rules and see that the boss has a very different way that they're going to be moving. First thing right at the top, they can't move away from the nearest inactive object. So I don't know if you dealt with many drug addicts, but they're pretty into the drug that they're into if they're an addict, and they're never going to easily pull away from it. So that's the mentality that we have. We're going to be using Mac. If you want to use one of the other bosses, hey, it's your game, do what you want to do. But Mac will be focusing on specifically the inactive objective. Now, he will try to defend himself by retreating if anything specifically states that he can retreat. And I'll be honest, every time I see Vandal, I think of RoboCop 2 and the nuke that everyone was addicted to. They have nothing to do with each other. The colors don't match up at all, but for some reason, that's the scene I always think of. So anyway, the boss will be gaining random defense tokens if they're not able to attack, and if you're standing next to an active objective token, you're going to be taking damage. One of the things to be aware of is when we look over at the Vandal Poison Vats card, it says when the boss enters an inactive objective space. You would flip that card, but that's not the most important part. The most important part is the entering the inactive objective space means that the objective tokens are not blocking the space. That means your fighter can stand on top of the inactive objective, not receive any damage, and hold the boss to a certain location. That could be a winning strategy for you if you can withstand the attacks from the boss. That's going to be totally subjective to the situation you're currently in and where you're at in the stage, but it could be a strategy on that very last objective token to keep you from dying. You won't be able to do this the entire time, of course, because there's also this card called Faithful Underlings. If you look at the locations of where the minions will spawn in, they're next to the inactive objective tokens. Unfortunately, what this means for you is that when they spawn in, when you see Faithful Underlings pop in, you've just lost as many of the objectives as you're not currently standing on. With those factors and the fact that the Onyx League minions have a very high amount of HP, you probably are going to find this impossible to solo. I would not recommend doing it with just one fighter. I would recommend at least 2 fighters, so you have one to kind of manage where the enemies are at and try to keep the boss to the beginning of his track. And I'm going to go into the track that the boss is going to follow for the inactive objective tokens in a second. But then you'll at least have one fighter to take care of the minions, one fighter to take care of the boss, and maybe you can switch them back and forth if you have to start going to look for loot or do something else, look for some type of healing. You get both Reese and Axel in the Twin Tigers set, so maybe you would like to use the 2 of them together, or maybe you'd like to throw in someone with some more healing that can really stand toe-to-toe, maybe someone like Max, or maybe you would like to pull in someone like Kiryu, who will draw the enemies toward him so that he can do big area of effect attacks. It's up to you how you want to go through with this, but just keep that part in mind. High mobility is going to be really important as you try to rush towards the different objective tokens and flip them on and off. And the damage dealing from someone like Reese is going to be super important as well, because the minions in the Onyx League have super high HP compared to the other minion sets. So now that we have Mac on the board, I'm going to show you what we're supposed to do with the boss. So first, they're going to move only the amount of spaces that whatever the card says for the enemy. So if you had Kimono, if you have Jackal, if you have Juan, whoever you have. So if you have someone like Juan or Dimitri, then they may move quite a bit differently because they have a retreat function that is on their cards. But if they don't have a retreat, they're only going to move towards an inactive objective token. So that means you can kind of rubber band them back and forth if you trap them in the middle of two of the objective tokens that are a certain distance apart and they have low movement. That's a tactic you can do to try to keep them from moving too far along the board. But with good old Mac here, I'm going to show you how he's going to move from objective token to objective token, only going for the closest one possible. So you can see from the track that he's making, he is going to land on the green objective token last. So for me, that means that the green and the red are the least important ones to defend. Those are like my fail safes. They also have the minion spawn points right next to them. So for me, the most important one to keep track of is the yellow. If I can keep Mac or whoever your boss is from taking the yellow one, that means when that card comes up for the faithful underlings, there will be at least one objective token still on the board that has not been flipped over, and I won't automatically lose just because a stage card popped up with some minions on the board. And that honestly should be enough to get you through the rest of this stage. The Poison the Well stage is pretty simple. It's just hit the boss as hard as you can, as often as you can, and keep them from moving. The minions that you pick will greatly affect how hard or easy it is for you to be able to handle the stage. You want to think pretty carefully on maybe you're going to need some allies, and if it is a little too easy for you, depending on the minions that you chose, throw in some rivals. In the future, I'll try to do a full playthrough with both Axel and Reese on this stage, but that'll be a few months down the line and probably well after all the Aftershock stuff is done. As it stands right now, you can still go out and pledge for the Aftershock campaign. There's lots of great stuff in there, and I'm sure the future videos of the next year or two will include all that fun stuff. The late pledge may still be in play if you've missed the November-ish deadline of the original or the Aftershock Kickstarter, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't contact Blacklist or someone else, probably in the Facebook page for the fans or on Board Game Geek, and try to get yourself a copy if this is well into the 2020s and you know, it's like the Jetsons out there and you just need your board game because it's the apocalyptic Jetsons and everything's gone to heck, and instead of living in the sky, we're all mole people. I know that's nothing like the Jetsons, but hey, you can watch your cartoons how you want. If you have any comments, questions, or concerns, I'm pretty active in the Facebook fan page. If you've got no Facebook account and you just want to rant away at me, you don't need an account to go ahead and do that at Board Game Geek. And on YouTube, where everybody loves to rant, I try to read the comments as best I can and take any suggestions I can to provide you guys with content that you're interested in. You can hit the thumbs up and subscribe if you want to be notified of when I make more videos. And otherwise, have a good one.